What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. Dr. Mike Axler here, PhD in kinesiology and applied physiology, professor of exercise science, and 60-plus time marathoner and ultramarathoner. What if I told you that there exists in this universe one thing more powerful than any supplement, any drug, that can help you both live longer and live better? Would you continue listening, or would you be in complete disbelief? So if you clicked on this video title, I'm guessing this is a bit of foreshadowing, so you know that the one thing that we are talking about is going to be muscle, and in general, skeletal muscle. And the good thing is we all have it, right? And for most of us who are over 30, 40, 50, and 60, the issue is that it starts to decline both in the size, the strength, and then I guess as well as you can say the efficiency. So it would very much behoove us to grow strong and efficient muscles early on in life and maintain that as we age. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about why skeletal muscle is important for living a longer, healthier, stronger, and more disease-free life. And then accordingly, how we can go about training our skeletal muscle on a daily and a weekly basis to ensure that we live the longest and healthiest lives possible. So we'll be touching upon things like osteoporosis, sarcopenia, type 2 diabetes risk, metabolic disease, and much more. So if you are interested in that, please continue listening. Let's start off by talking about what actually happens when we lose muscle. We do lose muscle after the age of 30 in the way of around 3 to 8% per decade, again, after the age of 30, such that by the age of 40, the average person has lost anywhere from around 3 to 8% of their skeletal muscle mass. By the age of 50, they've lost around 6 to 16% of their muscle mass. By the age of 60, they've lost around 9 to 24% of muscle mass. And by the age of 70, they've lost around 12 to 32% of their muscle mass. And note the robust ranges here. This is obviously going to be differences in sex and genetics, but the main drivers of these robust ranges in which people lose muscle as they age are going to come from diet and exercise. Are you or your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, are they the people who are constantly in the gym, maybe once a day, maybe every other day, weight training and actually working hard? And accordingly, are they also eating enough calories and enough complete protein sources? Or are they people who haven't been to the gym in months and they just maybe look on their credit card statement every once in a while and realize, oh, my credit card's still being charged for this one gym membership I never use? So sarcopenia, which is the progressive loss of muscle mass, as we are detailing right now, is a predictor of frailty, which is, brittle bones, unstable gait, weak muscles, instability, the whole thing, as well as falls and mortality. And one of the biggest causes of all-cause mortality in this country is sarcopenia based. That's just kind of the starting point before the inevitable fall down, quite literally. So what we're detailing here is that muscle isn't just for athletes and gym-obsessed people and people who are flexing and taking pictures in the mirror. It's really like the organ of longevity, because skeletal muscle is an endocrine organ important for longevity. Alrighty, let's start off by first detailing muscle and glucose regulation. Let me sell you on this idea of why it is incredibly important to treat your skeletal muscle well, why we should train it effectively, and why we should make more of it. Number one, skeletal muscle is the largest site of glucose disposal alongside the liver, such that after a meal, your skeletal muscle mass accounts for around 80% of your post-meal glucose uptake. We know that glucose, which is one of the primary monosaccharides and carbohydrates next to fructose and galactose, Most of us eat quite a bit of glucose from carbohydrates, which is a good thing. And most of that glucose is going to be stored in the skeletal muscles as glycogen for later use. So like you don't have to be eating it every single minute of the day in order to have energy, like your heart needs to beat every minute. You can store that glucose as glycogen for later. And if you store too much of it, it's just stored as body fat or adipose tissue. And again, that's another positive homeostatic mechanism to make sure we just don't starve to death, right? But the good thing is that the more skeletal muscle mass we have, this is really protective of insulin sensitivity, so we don't develop type 2 diabetes. We've detailed this in past podcast episodes and YouTube videos that when we have glucose after a meal, our blood sugar or blood glucose is going to rise, and it is up to our pancreas to secrete insulin to drive down blood sugar and store it in the muscles and liver as glycogen for later. But if we have more and more muscle mass, what we're able to do is not ask too much of that pancreas to secrete insulin, because most of it's going to be driven into the skeletal muscles anyway for use, which is awesome. So this is going to increase insulin sensitivity and decrease your risks of developing not only obesity, but type 2 diabetes and future metabolic disease. So taken together, increases in skeletal muscle is preventative of metabolic syndrome, which if you don't know what metabolic syndrome is, it's going to be a cluster of conditions which encompasses high blood pressure, elevated blood glucose, excess body fat, typically around like the belly area, increased triglycerides, increased cholesterol, and all of those risk factors are going to predispose us for things like heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and that's what most people die of in the United States is cardiovascular disease or cardiometabolic diseases. So if you can get skeletal muscle to not develop obesity and type 2 diabetes, you're already ahead of the curve and you could really decrease your incidences of dying of a cardiometabolic disease. So please start early, get a gym membership. Next, muscle is an anti-inflammatory organ. Skeletal muscle, and we've talked about this in other episodes as well, that skeletal muscle does release myokines during exercise. And myokines are small proteins that act as signaling molecules in the body, much like endocrine organs. And they have anti-inflammatory properties, anti-tumor properties, in addition to immune boosting effects. This is really awesome. This happens during skeletal muscle contraction. So not only during like your cardiovascular exercises, but also your strength training exercises. And the reason why this is so important is because chronic low-grade inflammation over a long enough time horizon exacerbates issues such as aging, Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative issues, as well as heart disease. And heart disease is going to encompass coronary artery disease, heart failure, various arrhythmias, and just early death. So while lifting weights does cause acute inflammation, both locally and systemically after exercising, over the long term or chronically, we are going to have a decrease in inflammation when we do develop more skeletal muscle. So this is very much going to be promoting longevity as well as health span. Next, muscle and mitochondrial health. We've talked about this a lot with respect to the cardiovascular training, that we develop more mitochondria, called mitochondrial biogenesis, when we do a lot of endurance training, anywhere from like 20 minutes a day to an hour a day or maybe even more. Just as with endurance training, we also know that lifting weights also does increase mitochondrial biogenesis. This is incredibly important because this increases muscle function, which equates with increases in energy. So we quite literally just have more metabolic engines, so to speak. We have decreased fatigue and better metabolic health. So big picture here, when we strength train and we go through mitochondrial biogenesis, we have a physiological process which is going to slow down biological aging. Next, muscle and quality of life. So now we're getting into a little bit more of like the modern day examples in the musculoskeletal aspect. And a lot of you can probably understand these as well. Maybe you see this in your family. Maybe you can already see this in yourself. We should know intuitively that muscle is critical for balance, stability, and preventing injury. In a previous video, I had detailed, or I had asked all of you, can you think of a really old person, maybe their 90s or maybe even their 80s or 70s, who's hunched over, and we can see this like big curve in the cervical spine, like right up top, followed by your thoracic spine in the middle, and then your lumbar spine at the end, because that's how essentially we age, is you start to like slowly curve on over due to osteoporosis and sarcopenia. And I had asked all of you guys, how old do you think they are? How long do you think that decline started to happen? Did it look unstable? Do you want to kind of hold their hand and make sure they don't fall? Do you want to hold a door for them? You kind of go, I hope I don't get old too. Think about that person right now, or those people, right? And they're really, really, really unstable. And you think, does it hurt? Can they stand up straight? What do their activities of daily living look like? And now Google right now Sylvester Stallone. The man is almost 80 years old. Working out like a fiend. He's still making TV shows. He looks amazing. I think he still has abs at 80, which is awesome. And I know personally a couple people in their 70s who are still running 100-mile ultramarathons. So it's amazing. And that's like on the topic of age is just a number. It's up to you to do your homework. But what we're saying here with respect to muscle and the quality of life is that we are going to go through bone loss, so osteopenia and osteoporosis, as well as sarcopenia and muscle loss. This not only, as we said, decreases your balance, but your stability and just like your gait, and people start shuffling their feet a little bit. If we want to maintain our quality of life, maintain our independence, maintain driving our car to the store, going out to dinner at 60, 70, 80, that's really the goal, right? We want to continue doing that for as long as possible. I just saw a guy at the gym yesterday morning. I was wearing a Rutgers t-shirt because I went to Rutgers for undergrad. And he came up to me and just started talking about Rutgers, saying that he went there too. And we're just having a back and forth conversation. And he gave me a nice strong handshake. And he told me he was class of 1965. And you can do the math on that. He was probably around 81, 82 years old. He looked amazing. Drove himself to the gym and started hitting the weights. And I thought, man, like, this guy is 52 years older than I am. Like, that's amazing, right? So that's going to be the main thing here. Next, how do we stimulate and preserve the muscle we have and continue to build more of it? Number one is going to be focus on resistance training 2 to 4 times a week minimum. You can resistance train every single day. I know like the exercise science research says not to, but even if you want to just like go into the gym and just do an arm workout or just a chest workout or a calf workout, you can do that every day to just not break the chain. And this is something that I would really encourage a lot of older people to do in your 50s, 60s, 70s, is get into the gym every day and make it a habit. Do a little bit of the weights, do a little bit of the cardio, and don't miss a day. Because when you start missing days, you start to get in your head of, I can only do 6 days, I can only do 5, I can only do 4. And before you know it, you're not even going to the gym. Again, we want to be healthy. We want to ward off type 2 diabetes, ward off metabolic syndrome, ward off like future falls and breaks. See how this works. So the main thing with resistance training, and I see this because I go to Planet Fitness, is I had this thought yesterday that 95% of people in Planet Fitness don't work hard. They're just there to take up space. And that bothers me more than anything, because I'm like, there are the people who want to go there and they want to feel good, they want to perform well, and they want to be healthy. So what I mean by this and why I'm bringing this up is that when you resistance train, you resistance train 2 to 4 times a week or more, make sure you are safely going within 1 to 2 reps shy of failure. Let's just say you're going for like a bicep curl, like a chest press, and you're pressing it up and you're like trying to get it up. When you start to really struggle, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your reps slow down, you feel a little bit unstable, and it's okay to do the machines and just do this nice and safely and progress over time, because that's how muscle is going to be stimulated. You can't just walk inside of a gym and just expect, oh my God, my muscles are going to start like pumping up right now. It's like, no, you actually have to do something. Having a gym membership or a key fob on your keychain doesn't do anything. You have to work hard and look to progress daily and weekly, and obviously safely. Further on that, research does support consuming around 0.7 to 1.0 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, multiply that by 0.7 and 1. So whatever 0.7 times 150 is to 150 grams, make sure to get that every single day. And I've talked about this in a whole lot of other videos on how you can distribute your complete protein sources throughout the day. It is not hard by any means, despite what you might think. And a lot of the younger folks don't actually need this much protein. They can get away with a little bit less. But the older folks, and again, research supports this, that the older folks who are maybe 50, 60, 70, 80 do need to increase their protein even more than younger people, because they've been combating sarcopenia, osteoporosis, and a less than advantageous hormonal milieu for years, maybe 30 years, maybe 40 years. So they're going to need a little bit more protein. And lastly, really focus on progressive overload and the recovery aspect, not only between sets, but also between sessions. If your arms or your chest or your back is feeling a little bit too sore from a day or two ago, that's okay. Take a light day or take a cardio day. You want to make sure you're sleeping at least 7 to 9 hours per night, getting in your protein, and progressing. Awesome. So a little bit of a summary here. We did talk about sarcopenia prevention. We discussed what sarcopenia is, how it is a gradual loss of muscle mass as we age with a much sharper decline after the ages of 50 and 60. We talked about how skeletal muscle improves glucose control and therefore decreases insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes. We talked about how skeletal muscle decreases inflammation chronically, which very much increases both health span and longevity. We talked about the combination of endurance training and resistance training, how both of those help to increase mitochondrial biogenesis, which gives us more energy and more vitality throughout the day and therefore our lives. And the more muscle we have, and accordingly we train that muscle, the stronger and more independent we are for years and years and years to come. So if you did enjoy this video, please like, subscribe, and share this with a friend or a family member who might need to see it. And make sure to scroll on down and subscribe to both my podcast, where I do a little bit deeper dives, as well as my Instagram, where I put out little snippets of only the most up-to-date scientific information with respect to exercise science, nutrition, longevity, aging, all the rest of it. So it is about that time of day where I'm going to go to the gym, and you should be as well. And remember, always, consistency wins, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching.